Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of not just the Locked On Padres podcast. It is a middle of the day Locked On Padres podcast. No, I'm just kidding. It's more than that. It is a Locked On Padres and Locked On Giants crossover. I am being joined by the one, the only, the illustrious man of the hour, Mr. Ben Kaspick, the host of Locked On Giants. A great lad he is. Today's episode, guys, we will be talking about Bob Melvin. Breaking news is now going to manage the San Francisco Giants because while everyone always says to me, Javi, look, it can get better. Don't worry. We'll figure it out. You don't have to be the Joker anymore. Well, Ben, it's back, ladies and gentlemen. I haven't even put it on fully, but it is back. And we're going to be talking about it from the Padres perspective. And of course, the Giants bringing in a new manager after somewhat surprisingly dismissing Gabe Kapler not too long ago. But before we get into that, guys, really quickly, I want to give a shout out to our friends over at FanDuel. Today's episode is brought to you by those good folks. Make every moment more right now. New customers can bet $5 to get 200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. We love the good folks over at FanDuel. And if they ever have a prop bet on likelihood for me to lose my mind over the course of this offseason, I recommend betting the over. Okay, I don't know if they have that yet, but look forward to it. But Ben, look, before we get into it, though, how are you? It's been a quiet offseason, I think, for us both, but that's also because we're not fully in the offseason yet because the playoffs are still going on. Congratulations to the Rangers at the time of this recording. The AL representative, we'll see who the National League representative is. But, sir, how are you doing during these waning moments of October?
Well, it's been hectic. I'm in the process of moving, and so that has in fact been hectic, but underneath it all, you know, I always am locked in on the Giants and the fact that even though, like, you know, it's been quiet, the fact that they're looking for a new manager is a huge deal. So like I know now it's past tense that a big huge kind of announcement was imminent in the next, you know, they said they wanted to get it done by the time that free agency started, which is 5 days after the World Series. And so World Series is about to start. So we knew it was coming soon. And then, of course, the big news that the Padres were going to allow Melvin to interview. And as soon as that happened, it was just like, you know, it seemed like everybody, you, me, everybody just was like, this is very likely to actually happen where he's going to get the job. And then like 24 hours later, here we are.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just, I mean, I almost don't know where to start, frankly. So I'm going to start by saying, first of all, big move, obviously, Bob Melvin. I felt the effects of what happened when the Padres first hired him just 2 years ago. And that was like a crazy big move, especially at the time, because Melvin was still with the A's. And then all of a sudden it was like, boom, 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 it like changed, especially for a Padres management team, front office that hasn't hired a name like that. Someone that doesn't have a connection to AJ Preller, someone who had a lot of experience, wasn't super young, wasn't a first-time manager like Jace Tingler was beforehand. But then your first immediate reaction from the Giants side of things, bringing in Bob Melvin, and I guess part of this is talking about Gabe Kapler, but we'll start with first initial reaction. Bob Melvin will manage the Giants in 2023.
It's somewhat mixed, but I've like my first reaction when Gabe Kapler was fired, there was like immediate speculation about Bob Melvin around here. He and I went to the same high school, Menlo Atherton High School in Menlo Park. He grew up in Menlo Park, so like he is local to the Bay Area. He went to Cal. He went to Kenyatta College, which is a community college in Redwood City, which is near here. He played for the Giants for a handful of years in the 80s. And he managed the A's across the Bay. So there's so much Bay Area connection. The one thing I was, you know, initially was like, okay, well, look at the Padres season that they just had and how disappointing of a year it was. And like, from the outside perspective, it was kind of like my initial reaction was like, well, if he, like, I just, the images of Bob Melvin that resonated from 2023, anytime I turned on a Padres game and just saw, you know, the team collapsing or whatever, and he just didn't look happy. And that was like the lasting kind of impression was like Bob Melvin failing to lead this superstar team to more than an 82 and 80 record. But then the more I thought about it, the more
Mhm.
I thought that it actually made a lot of sense given what the Giants need. And it does tie into what Gabe Kapler didn't provide and what was missing and what went wrong with his tenure. And so I have ultimately come to land on, and I said this yesterday before they actually hired him. I'm not just saying it now that it's done, that I ultimately kind of landed on, I think it's a really good move for them. I just have like one area of concern, maybe, which is what the coaching staff looks like. But he himself, as the manager, I think it brings a stability and a
Mhm.
credibility that it sounds like, the Padres were going through too, around maybe even more so when they hired him away from the A's.
Mhm.
Uh, the Giants kind of had like Kapler just never. He felt kind of like an outsider. This is possibly just partially just my opinion, but he grew up in L.A., which is like people around here. It's just we don't like L.A. Like it's fine, you go visit it every now and then, but it's just like he was in the Dodgers organization as their farm director. And so a guy who's like local, I don't know if he grew up a Giants fan or an A's fan or maybe some other team, but and then just such credibility
Yeah.
with the track record. I mean, he's managed like this will be his like 21st season as a manager and commands respect from the players immediately, I think, and credibility with the fans. He's like friends with the Giants broadcasters, which I think like it's just um, there's all kinds of different angles. Like we could talk probably for way longer than we're going to about
Mhm.
all this, but I came to land on I think it's the right move. I just want to see what the coaching staff looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that my perspective as a non-Giants fan, taking the Giants' perspective, if that makes any sense,
Sure.
is I find it kind of fascinating what's going on here because this is a team that hasn't had necessarily the like utmost respect, not respect, success over
Hmm.
the past few years. They've definitely had some. Don't get me wrong, and frankly, I think that they did quite well from the outside, considering that they whiffed on their free agents famously in this past offseason. And this move kind of seems like we're still like committed. Like we're not just leaving a guy to hang out and do stuff. And I think that that says a lot. I think that's cool for the Giants. And I think that the Giants just having someone with experience, like you said, experience definitely matters a whole lot. And, Melvin, he's done a lot with less. And I don't mean just less players, I mean less organization. This guy
Hmm.
was stuck with the A's for so long, and they refused to spend more than like 20 million on Trevor Rosenthal, right? Like that's what he was given. So while you can critique some things, and we're going to talk about some critiques of Melvin, I think it's a great hire. I really do. I think that there aren't really many other guys you could find out there that have even a fraction of Melvin's success or experience or respect, because there's basically even after this Giants season, there's basically no one except for AJ Preller, who we'll get into later. Believe me, that's why I'm wearing my hat today. Um, Basically, no one in the sport, from people I've heard behind the scenes, off the record, people that other people have told me they've heard off the whatever it is, random commentators, everything. There's like not a single person who's like, about Bob Melvin. I can find people who said that about Gabe Kapler when the Giants were winning before I can find someone who says something
Hmm.
negative about Bob Melvin. And I'm not just saying that, like I literally could. So I think that for the Giants, I wonder if like this shows that they're getting the show on the road. And I think that the swiftness with which this happened is probably a good sign if you're a fan. So I'd be interested to see how it plays out and whatnot. And yeah, that's all I have to say from the non-Giants perspective as an outsider, the non-Giants fan. We're gonna get deeper into this because, again, I don't wear my hat for no reason. I always wear it with a purpose. Lately,
And
and
you wear it
trust me,
often, which
and
is
I
hilarious.
wear it often, which is the big problem here. We're gonna get into the Padres kind of sign of things, what this says about both teams, frankly, in just a second, guys. But before we do that, got to talk about our good folks over at Jace Medical. Here's the thing. Here's the thing. There's a lot of craziness out there. There's a lot of craziness all the time. I mean, we just had a pandemic. I know it's like 3 years ago that thing started, but it still can be felt. And frankly, it's just still crazy that that was 3 years ago. But that threw everything out of whack and showed you that you need to make sure that you are prepped and prepared with life-saving antibiotics. And Jace Case is here to help you. It is a personalized emergency medication kit that contains 5 essential antibiotics that treat the most common and deadly of bacterial infections. You could also customize your case and add additional life-saving medications based on your unique needs. It also, like I said, offers customization, and all you have to do is just hop on a call with one of their licensed pediatricians, and they'll help you out, figure out what is best for you. It's great, and Jace is continually working to expand their medication offering. So on top of already having a lot, on top of having a customability, they've got you with growth. It's great. You love to see that from companies. In most recent efforts, they've added plenty of different options to their case. So you can even get gift cards, you know what I mean? Surprise someone with a Jace Case or whatever you want to do. So go to go to jacemedical.com and enter code LOCKEDON at checkout for a $20 discount on your order. Remember, that's promo code LOCKEDON at Jace. That's spelled JASE medical.com. J as in Jace Tingler, A as in Alfredo Simone, S as in
Sergio
Romo, and then E as in Ernest Klein, author of Ready Player One. Again, I'm really random today. Remember that jacemedical.com, locked on for a $20 discount. Go check it out. And everybody, just like that, we're back here on the Locked On Padres and Locked On Giants special breaking news crossover with the news that Bob Melvin is heading to the San Francisco Giants, leaving the vacancy open for the San Diego Padres. Ben, I'm just going to go ahead for a quick second now. I think that this speaks so much volumes, and I mentioned this on my episode today, or my episode yesterday, but this speaks so much volume about the Padres and their organization. And here's why. It almost has nothing to do with Melvin himself. It does, because this is a super experienced manager, and he's had a lot of success elsewhere with a lot less, like we mentioned in the first segment. And you're letting him go after 2 years. And one of those years, you got the closest to the World Series you had been since basically 1998, when they were literally in the World Series. Unfortunately, they had to play the Yankees, but I digress. On top of all that, you have to take into account this. You let this guy go to a division rival, which doesn't happen very much. And the last time it happened for the Padres, it was a man by the name of Bruce Bochy. Thankfully, though, he didn't have much success afterwards, so we can be okay about that. Thank you, Padres leadership. So there's no way this will bite them in the butt, right? Not at all, right? And none whatsoever. When you watch sports, oftentimes the team that gets rid of great talent and experience and success, and it's the team that usually hasn't had any before, that always ages well. This isn't the Cardinals getting rid of a manager where you're like, oh, I mean, maybe the Cardinals have a recent streak of success. This is it. The Dodgers, if they finally got rid of Dave Roberts, who chokes every year, whatever, like that would speak more about being, hey, maybe they know what they're doing. But this is the equivalent of the New York Jets selecting a quarterback again for the 85th year in a row in the first round, acting like it's going to change things when no one in your front office has changed or in your organization. And on top of all that, leaving to a division rival, which, oh yeah, definitely won't age well. Bob Melvin said Tatis, Soto, Musgrove, Darvish, a farm system that is growing by the day and frankly might even still be better than the Giants' current farm system. I haven't been paying attention, despite all the trades they've made, and Juan Soto and Manny Machado and Xander Bogaerts and an ownership willing to spend for the first time in franchise history. And he decided, you know what? I prefer I forgot the name of your catcher.
Patrick Bailey
and Kyle Harrison and
Mike
Yastrzemski. No offense to those players in the slightest, but that is such an indictment that he decided to leave one of the most star-studded teams in the league to go to a division rival that, don't get me wrong, things could change this offseason. Maybe that's the plan. Maybe bringing in Melvin, we'll talk about that in a second, is a plan of things to come. But the guaranteed stuff is right there. You've got Padres players. You were in the NLCS not too long ago against a team that might be in the World Series 24 hours from now. And you let that go because you decide to trust your GM, who hasn't had any season in which the team has won more than 90 games. The best season was 89 games, and that was under Bob Melvin. And no other manager that AJ Preller has done better than that. And most of them have been first-time managers or people that he knew from the Texas Rangers organization when he was still there. Ben, I am so livid with this. Oh, well, Javi, didn't you see the series against the Giants when he managed the bullpen? Yeah, it's hard to manage a bullpen when inexplicably Luis Garcia has like the best slider in the league amongst relief pitchers and then has a 6.8 million ERA. And then your closer doesn't want to go more than 3 outs. Okay, it's a little bit hard to manage under those circumstances. It's not his fault that you're up by 5 and you're like, hey, Luis Garcia, just don't be this bad. You could be bad, but not this bad. And he's that bad every single time. That is the story of the San Diego Padres in 2023. And and don't even get me started on the reports of Ryan Flaherty, who's the offensive bench coach, or a bench coach for the Padres, is the offensive coach for the Padres. Wow, 2023 really showed me that he did a great job as an offensive coach, being like the worst clutch team in the history of the damn sport. So I'm really thrilled that they're just hiring someone who, in my opinion, is probably just an extension of the front office. That's what Preller wants, because God forbid he can take just one more year of someone who actually tries to do their job without him roaming around like an eagle circumventing, you know, a dead rat or whatever. What do eagles eat? I don't even know, but you get my point. Like, it's just, that's what he does. He hovers around everything. He micromanages, and now you cost yourself a manager. And I just, it's so hilarious that just like 2.5 weeks ago, this guy gave us a conference and just blasted the reports, not blasted in his own polite, smug sort of way. And what is, I don't mean like he was yelling at the camera, but he was doing like, you know, that's why we don't pay any credence to, you know, reports like that. That's not how we operate around here. And, you know, blah, blah, blah. And then also, you know, anonymous sources and all that. Yeah. Definitely. Based on this, there's definitely no credibility to all those reports. So, Ben, I've been ranting for a while, but I really just think that this shows you how much disarray there is in the Padres organization, that they're like, we trust our GM who's been here forever. Ben, most GMs, I mean, I know you know this, but most GMs don't get to hire their 3rd manager. AJ Preller will now be tasked with hiring his 6th manager. That's insane. And Padres ownership is like, yeah, sure.
Yeah,
That's where the Padres are at.
it is kind of crazy. It's like the call is coming from inside the house. That's kind of like you know, maybe you're looking, the problem isn't the manager. You know, if you're especially when it's Bob Melvin, right? It's like one thing if, okay, Jace Tingler like loses the clubhouse or something, but this is Bob Melvin. It's
he never loses clubhouses.
No,
Never.
and he's like one of the most well-respected and just kind of universally respected managers in the game. And he, like you said, he's got a superstar team, and he's just like, I don't want to be here. Basically, is what it seems like. And why? I don't know. And so I was, you know, I'm in some ways like, I know, like I've been reading through the Padres, you know, the reports on this from the Padres perspective, like Dennis Lin, I think is his name, for The Athletic, and just trying to figure out, like, there's reports that of, you know, clashing between Melvin and Preller almost immediately, which I'm a little confused about, because why did AJ Preller, was it not AJ Preller who sought out Melvin in the first place to come in? Or was that kind of ownership as well that wanted that someone more stable and with experience?
I've heard mixed things on that, just from what I've read. No inside sources or anything like that. Like, because when that happened, it really was like an oddball hiring for Preller, because he hadn't done anything like that before. And I thought it was a great sign that he was saying, all right, you know what? Like, let's stop with the first-time managers that I had a beer with or whatever and I liked hanging out with. Let's actually bring in someone who has like a crazy lot of experience and respect around the league. It was just so unlike what they've usually been doing, mostly to no little success, right? Jace Tingler, by wide reports, lost the locker room. You had the Tatis Machado incident famously against the Cardinals that was captured on video and all that stuff. So it could have been ownership. But then again, considering how much of a micromanager AJ Preller is, maybe it wasn't. But it was just very surprising when that hiring happens. And it was a good surprise. It was like, oh, wait, you're learning from your mistakes. You're saying, let's try something new. And now they're just going back to what they already were doing. And I mean, don't get me wrong, they may hire, let's say, Mike Schilt, who's with the Padres in a sort of senior advisory role. He's had some success before. I would
Mm-hmm.
question it just because, as I was alluding to earlier, like the Cardinals aren't a dumb organization. Like maybe there was a reason they let go of a guy who also won Manager of the Year and had like multiple winning seasons. But even still, I prefer that over the 37-year-old that once played with Manny Machado. So therefore, apparently, he's qualified to manage the team now. I guess that's just what GMs want. Let's just have all Aaron Boones. All right. Everyone who tells me meritocracy is real can shove it because it's not. It never has been. And this is just another example that it isn't. But I just like, I mean, I'm like losing it. I'm like really losing it. And it's nothing to do with a loss. It's just that like, it just really feels like it validates all the things that were said about the Padres. And the Giants are like, cool. Yeah, we'll take them. Sounds great.
Yeah. Yeah, and it has so many parallels. You mentioned Bruce Bochy, but it's kind of the exact same kind of deal. Where I mean, it's not the exact same kind of deal because the Preller situation wasn't happening then, but basically, he had a year left on his contract too. Bochy did, and the Padres allowed him to interview up here, and he came up here, and look what happened. And it is very perplexing from the Padres' perspective, but if their relationship was really so bad that that just seems to be what probably is the case, is that they but it's like if you can't work with Bob Melvin, then maybe you're the problem. And that's from my outside perspective. As a Padres fan, I would probably be livid with this too. And just I mean, the Padres have 2 winning seasons under Preller, and they were the 2 seasons in which Bob Melvin was the manager. Granted, the talent level is off the charts the last 2 seasons.
And 2020, I guess, but still.
Oh, right. 2 full
seasons.
Full seasons. Yes, I apologize. They did have a great 2020. But it's like, hey, if you don't want them, we'll take them. That's kind of how I feel because like I said, I've really come around that what the Giants needed, and like I think I want to probably, if I may, like transition a little bit to talking about Kapler and like why he was fired and why Melvin.
You may do that in just 1 second.
Yes.
In just 1 second as I do my hyper punch. Because I want to talk really quickly because let me tell you, things like this, they change outlooks. They change lines. They change betting lines. You know what I'm saying? Let me tell you guys, with October baseball at full stretch, but make no mistake, like they'll be back for when the regular season here. And I'm sure that everybody's already hitting the over on Giants wins just because of this one sign. And we're going to talk about the Giants in just a second. But again, guys, of course, I'm talking about our good friends over at FanDuel. You know them, you love them, and you've got October baseball, obviously. And in terms of right now, if you join today, you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. See, this is what we do for the people, Ben. We just give them free, cool ads and plugs and discounts. It's just what we do here at Locked On. We are giving to our fan base. We trust them. We aren't AJ Preller. We trust them.
It's a good deal. $5, 200 in bonus bets. That is a good deal.
Yeah, it absolutely is, guys. And if you just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon, you can create your new account and get that bonus. And also, whatever you want. It's home runs, strikeouts, walks, hits, total bases, stolen bases, doubles. Next manager fired under AJ Preller. They probably have that up on there.
Probably.
They probably have that up on there. So you go check it out. FanDuel.com/lockedon for $200 of bonus bets guaranteed. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. We are back, ladies and gentlemen, here as I meditate or whatever. Here are the Locked On Padres and Locked On Giants podcast. I've done a lot of ranting, but now we have to talk about, I think, a big perspective for the Giants, and it, ostensibly has to do with the Padres too, which is I don't think you make a move like this, Ben, frankly, if you're not ready to make some more. Especially in the case of the Giants, which is a team that, like I alluded to earlier, does not have nearly the star power as the Padres. We've got some interesting free agents available this offseason, from what I've heard. The face of the league, dare I say, is a free agent that the Giants have been linked to. I know that you're smiling already with just the possibility. Do you think that this is a sign that the Giants are going to have a big offseason?
Well, I think that they probably feel like they need to have a big offseason regardless. And I think that Melvin probably I think they think that having Melvin puts them perhaps in one of the best positions they could be in to recruit. Like that was one of the
Mm,
things when Kapler was fired 3 days before the season ended. Well, then they waited till the season ended, did a little presser with Farhan Zaidi, and he basically said that an important quality in the next manager was going to be that the manager needed to be an effective recruiter. And I think,
mm.
like we've been saying, the credibility that Melvin has around the league makes him like the Giants instantly have credibility. Whereas I think Gabe Kapler was like a polarizing figure in a lot of ways. Like you said, you could find people saying a lot of negative stuff about him, even on their way to 107 wins. Whereas with Melvin, like if there's any criticism, it's like maybe people might say he's like like boring pick or something like that. Is not,
Yeah.
you know,
He's not
he's
giving you no, Ozzie Guillen level quotes in
no.
the press conference. You know what I
Right.
mean? Yeah.
But I don't think you don't necessarily want that. And the Giants, they want more like stability and like normalcy, I think, because Kapler was just a
Me
little
too.
too far out there
Me
on
too.
the extreme end. Yes, we all do in this crazy world. But yeah, so part of it that I've been reading about when, from Dennis Lin and from Andrew Baggerly in The Athletic is that Bob Melvin, he managed the Mariners way back in '03 and
Hmm.
'04, but he developed a close relationship with Ichiro,
Hmm.
and Ichiro is like close with Shohei Ohtani. And also in San
Hmm.
Diego, Melvin had a good relationship, reportedly. You probably know more about this than I do, with both Yu Darvish and Ha-Sung Kim. And there's just a reputation there that he developed close relationships with those players. And not only is Shohei Ohtani a free agent, but you've also go over to Japan and look at Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who is the top pitcher in Japan and is
Hmm.
25 years old. Farhan Zaidi was literally in Japan, the Giants president of baseball operations, last Wednesday or something, like watching Yoshinobu Yamamoto. And also their general manager, Pete Patella, was in Korea watching Jung Hoo Lee, who was teammates with Ha-Sung Kim. And he's
Hmm.
being posted this offseason too. And so when you talk about recruiting and you talk about, there's reports that I have read that are that these two players and plus Ohtani, Shohei Yamamoto and Jung Hoo Lee, and Melvin, I think like if because Darvish is known to kind of be like a sounding board for players
Yeah.
coming over from
Yeah.
Japan, and also Blake Snell is a free agent, and the Giants are seeking high profile free agents, and
Just do it. Just
just take
take
them
everything
all.
from me.
I'll take
Just take
Snell. I'll
everything
take
from me.
Snell. We'll take Soto next year. We'll take Shohei. We'll take Yamamoto, and we'll take Jung Hoo Lee.
And AJ Preller will still be the GM somehow. That'll
Yeah,
be the
and he'll.
best part. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And so they certainly intend. I mean, because how can they possibly not intend to do something this offseason? Because they tried last offseason, famously, like you said, like it blew up in their faces. And then they didn't have a good year record wise at the end of the day. They did for a lot of the year hold a playoff position, but they fell apart down in the last couple months. So they certainly intend to go out and try to re energize the fans by making moves, but also just make the team better because they can't. Farhan Zaidi, the president of baseball operations, this is the last year of his contract coming up. So he
Mhm.
cannot afford, unlike the Padres, like the Giants, I don't think will be just all, will just have, you know, like patience for eternity with
Mm.
Farhan Zaidi. Like they need to win, and so they need to get better, but they also need people to get more excited about the team because people are like bored with the team and they're irritated with the way they play in like an unorthodox way. A lot of bullpen games and openers
Platoon
and
stuff and all that.
platoons,
Yeah.
and Gabe Kapler was like extreme far on
Yeah.
that end of the spectrum. And I think Bob Melvin, and maybe you can speak to this a little bit, is just kind of more maybe a balance and someone who can kind of read his players and kind of if the players are unhappy, like he cares about that and he might implement something a little bit differently, so that he's not, the manager of a group of disgruntled players. And I'm not sure Kapler was able to really do that. And
Mm-hmm.
he wasn't a great communicator. Like, a lot of the things he said were just odd. Sometimes he criticized players like openly, which
The
you don't normally
weird.
see.
Well, who was the pitcher that like looked like he was about to fight him on the mound? You know
Oh,
what I'm
Zach
talking about?
Littell. Yeah.
Yeah, that was weird. It was like in August or whatever, and I was like, is he like gonna
It
swing?
was 2022. Yeah.
I was like, is
But
he gonna swing on him? Like it was
I know.
so weird.
And
I
then
was like,
they
I've never
like
seen
cut
that.
him like 2 days later. They
Yeah,
DFA'd him. But
that was odd.
yeah, I mean, he just never won over the fans, and I think his communication style, like, and he was replacing Bochy, who's like,
Yeah.
it's almost an impossible task. But I think if anybody, like, Melvin is much closer to Bochy as a style, certainly
Hmm.
as like a presence, than
Hmm.
Kapler was like the polar opposite, presence wise.
Hmm.
Like his, just the way he was in a
Yeah,
room, and the way
absolutely.
he spoke and all that. And but Melvin has experience. He's not just like old school, quote unquote.
Hmm.
Um, Managing the A's, they're a little bit, they were forward thinking or whatever, but also he's got. So I think Melvin's a blend. Like, can you just briefly tell me, like, how
Yeah,
was he as a manager?
I thought he was great, and I think that the results speak for themselves. Now, it's not as great of a resume in terms of his time in the San Diego Padres organization, just because it was only 2 years. So it's almost better to look at like the whole thing with him. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a little hard just to go from my perspective. The only thing was a couple of questionable bullpen moves, where you were like, why? Let's just bring in. But again, as I mentioned to you, sometimes they were just bad relievers, and I just think that there were moments when like. I mean, it just felt like no matter who he brought in outside Josh Hader, if it was a big spot, that guy would. It's like if a guy was pitching well, they'd be due, and it would happen right there. You know what I mean? Like it would be like no matter who he puts in, it's almost like doomed if you do, doomed if you don't. And then, like I said, with Josh Hader, who won't go more than 3 outs and won't go on back-to-back days, despite the team literally still being alive for a playoff spot. So that was great. But yeah, I think that I just think it's a smart hire. And I think it says a lot about their prospects personally. You were also already mentioning the players from Yamamoto to Lee to Otani. Like, I think that absolutely matters. And I think that to segue just really quickly to finish on my Padres point, I think that this means a lot for the Padres offseason. I think that it means a lot on top of all the reports with their weird financial stuff, not just in how much are they losing because of the weird network deal stuff that happens with their provider. That's a little bit separate, but it still matters. And then the report that they're cutting on payroll, and you just let go of your manager, that is now going to the Giants, who are looking for someone who has recruiting abilities. It would tell me, and I don't think that in theory this is the worst thing in the world, that the Padres probably aren't going to have that giant offseason again. They're probably not going to have a Xander Bogaerts, which frankly, I think is okay. You know why? Because you already have Xander Bogaerts. You don't need to do another big splash. But in terms of, let's say, re-signing Juan Soto, I'm wondering if Juan Soto's like, his agent's like, hey, look, do you like this organization? Because if you don't, I guarantee you, like, you good enough, bro. Like, you're going to get paid everywhere. So don't worry about that. You're not some, like, random free agent that's hoping to latch on and stay in the confines of Petco or whatever because you like the left field wall or something like that. I don't know. But I think it says a lot for their ability to retain Soto because I think players look at this. I think teams around the league are thrilled with the instability of the Padres. And I think players look at this. I really do. Now, don't get me wrong. If the Padres were to offer like an egregious amount, Soto would be like, hey, man, a bag is a bag. I don't care. I'll stay here. You know what I'm saying? Like
It's a nice
he's like,
city.
you know what I mean? Like it's a nice city, and hey, we'll be at least we're 82 and 80. Like you could convince a lot of people to do things with if you drop that much money. But like if it's a tiebreaker sort of thing,
Hmm.
right? Like if, and we won't know this for sure unless we're like really plugged in. Like if it's like, oh, X team offered 410 and Padres offered 430, maybe he might say, you know what, I want to go with the organization that knows what it's doing. So I
Hmm.
absolutely think that this could have an impact. It's just
Right.
not an impact that you can readily immediately see in your face like a flashing neon sign, right? But I think it means a lot for both teams. And I wouldn't be surprised with anyone that the Giants pick up this offseason. I think that they could absolutely swing for it. I wouldn't sleep on the Mets with Otani, just because I think Steve Cohen is a sugar daddy, and I think he watched the World Baseball Classic, and he was just like, "Oh my gosh, imagine if I had that!" Like, I just get like bajillions of fans tuning in every day, so I could see that. But yeah, I think this means a lot for both franchises. I thought that was a bug. Both franchises. Bad for the Padres, obviously, and I think tremendously good for the Giants, at least because Kapler did win Manager of the Year. And they did have the 107 win season. Fluke or not, bottom line, I mean, I don't think it's a fluke to win that many games. You had to have done something right. It's a good sign. And if they were going to replace a guy like that, they made a good replacement. They didn't do what the Padres are doing, which is let's replace this really experienced guy that everyone loves with a 37-year-old who played with Manny Machado once. You know what I mean? Like, that just seems to me like they have a plan. Well, the Padres are like hoping that their one guy finally has a plan. So see how it shakes out.
We shall see. I mean, it's fascinating, and I hope, I know and hope that it's not the last time we get into this, because there's going to be a lot more to discuss, and there's a lot more I could say, but I know we're out of time.
It's all good, man. It's all good. Yeah, if everybody wants to go see the crazies with the Padres, the Dennis Lin article from The Athletic, Ken Rosenthal and Dennis Lin's combined joint feature that came out a few weeks ago about AJ Preller, Kevin Acee, San Diego Tribune. I know my listeners sometimes hate him for sometimes inexplicable reasons, sometimes justified, but sometimes inexplicable. You could check out his article on that. You could check out the Athletic article from 2 years ago on AJ Preller and the 2021 collapse. And until next time, everybody, when Blake Snell signs with the San Francisco Giants, and Ben and I are joined together for another crossover on that move, and I probably end up complaining and yelling again. Ben, do you have any final things you'd like to plug for the people?
As I usually say, no, I don't. I don't know.
I love when you do that. Last time you did it so clean, though. You like paused and just said no. And I said, all right, like that's man, a few words. Go check out Ben on Twitter at Ben Kaspick. That's spelled Kaspick. And me, of course, at Javipeno, Javiipeno. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And until next time, stay safe and, of course, stay faithful. My Friday Faithful homies. Take care and stay golden.